disability that got me down into a lower gear. I can't move at full speed anymore. I am blessed with my wife, Little Bear, a.k.a. Mosey. We've been married 43 years, and I'm blessed for that. We have 3 daughters, we have 9 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren, and a 4th one on the way. So, I'll be set once I can't get around at all. I love my wife very much. She's stubborn, hard-headed, and very contrary, but I wouldn't trade her for life itself. My journey to where I am right now was difficult and at times most agonizing. I was a Muslim, and my work life, though, started when I was 16. I went to work on merchant ships, and my parents were glad to sign the papers. If you're under 18, fine, go. And after a few years sailing, I came back, and Mosey and I, my wife, got back together, and we married, and soon moved to Eastern Oregon. Mosey and I were no strangers. We grew up together, same neighborhood, same schools. So we've known each other a while. For the next 30 years, I worked in lumber and log mills, and I did union organizing. I always liked a good fight. And we raised our family, and in all families, as with all families, nothing's perfect, but we made it. And being a Muslim in Eastern Oregon ain't no easy task either, but I survived that. Eventually, the bottom fell out of the lumber industry, and thousands were put out of work. And we had to get rid of our home and come back to, we decided to come back to San Francisco. That's where we're from. Now, I grew up in an Orthodox church, so I knew a little bit about Christianity when I was a kid. But I never accepted the practices of the church, kissing the priest's hand at the end of the service, a priest who could forgive that only which God could forgive. And we were supposed to accept this, a priest's absolution. And at the end of the service, I'd be out on the steps, and I'd see the married men out there talking about the good-looking women they saw inside, lighting up their cigarettes, while they're waiting for their wives to come out. Well, the priest and I came to a mutual agreement one day. I was 15. I didn't want to be there, and he didn't want me there. So it worked out well. And it was 49 years before I ever set foot back in a Christian church. Over about a year and a half ago was the first time, actually, in the 49 years. I never lost my belief in God. I had no problem with God. I believed that there was a one God. And working on ships and meeting Muslims in different countries, it was easy for me to relate. I could understand because I too believed in a God absolute. No deities. Nothing but God. And when I stopped sailing, came back, before we went to Oregon, I started going to the mosque in San Francisco. And I became a Muslim. And years later, we were back and we settled into our routine back in San Francisco. And about 4 years ago, little did I realize, or could I, in my wildest imagination, have ever known that a chance meeting with a stranger would prove to be a huge blessing given me by God. And as we would, on occasion, talk, and after some time, she mentioned she was a Christian, after talking about working with a youth group in her church. And quietly, though, almost automatically, an instinct kicked in to beware, to use caution, because my guard went up. In other words, as in Islam, we're taught that a Muslim does not make friends with a Christian. That Christians are only friends with Christians. They will earn your friendship. They will get you to doubt your faith, and then they will turn their back on you. And But this stranger that I met was Christy Tangasparo. And what I've been taught and came to accept would soon prove wrong. Over time, I learned of her cancer, and she spoke of her struggle with it, the faith that she had that kept her going strong through it. And I wanted to know more about their faith. It brought her through her first bout with cancer, her second bout with cancer, and this last bout, which has been the most serious. And with little chance to sit and talk, we began to email, much to her dismay, much to her try her patience. And knowing that a person can be fashioned by their faith, how they're brought up in the group that they're brought up by. And aware that this church was a long ways from where I live. I live in San Jose. I wanted to know more about the kind of church that she came up in. What could nurture this kind of faith with this kind of person. And so I asked her for help in finding a church in my area. And she gave me a couple of churches to try. And only by referral, not by recommendation. She had not been to these churches. One was too far, impossible for me to get to by bus. So, but the other one was right on a bus line. So I decided, well, I'll give it an honest try. Give it 8 weeks. I'll try it. But it didn't take me long to realize that this could not be the church, the type of the environment that would instill and nurture the type of faith that I had seen possible. And so after the 7th week, I let her know. I said, I can't go back to this place. And so she said then, she invited me to come to this church, her church. And knowing it was too far away, I just had to be worked out, and worked out pretty well. She living between me and her church, I would simply take the bus and meet her and Noel, her husband, and from there we would go on to this church. After my first Sunday, I knew my journey was on the way. By coming here was difficult as well. For some time now, there had been a pulling on me. Didn't know, and I didn't understand. But at times when this feeling would overcome me, I would withdraw and go back to what I knew, Islam. It's simple, 40 years. I knew how to be a Muslim. And but the feeling was still there. And as hard as I would try and withdraw, the feeling would still persist. As much as I would withdraw back to Islam. Going to mosque, even talking with my imam, the imam is the preacher, the priest at a mosque. And he would tell me that, to find a quiet place, and at the end of my day, and pray to Allah, and that Allah will guide me. Well, I spoke with Reverend Lee about this, and he told me the same thing, except he said, pray to God. God will. Allah is only an Arab word for God, so it doesn't mean anything other than that. But, the comfort and the solace that I felt here, it didn't take long to see why this was Christy's safe place. And a safe place I rather imagine for a lot of people here. Meeting people here, talking to them, listening to them, coming here gave me a comfort that I really wasn't used to. I've always had a kind of a hostile type of life. So I'm not really very comfortable as it was unless there was some kind of hostility or confrontation or a fight going on. Being a union organizer served me well. At my mosque, speaking of my imam, he told me, as I said, to take time and pray, when the only distractions would be your own. And I prayed here, and I prayed at my mosque, and I prayed at home, and I prayed on the bus, and I prayed all the time. And sometime back in December, there was a feeling that the Lord Jesus was pulling on me, trying to get me into my head and into my heart, as hard as I would try and resist. He was calling me, but still, I would fall back on what I knew. This feeling was getting stronger and stronger and became constant. Never letting up that Jesus was pulling me in, opening my heart to let me in. I almost completely stopped going to the mosque. There was no comfort, no ease. The only place that I could feel ease and comfort was when I came here. And I began to pray in Jesus' name. And now it caused ease and brought comfort and complete feeling unknown to me. And then one strange thing happened in February. I made what was now one of my very rare trips to the mosque. And I could remember I went to the prayer line and I went to pray, and I could not remember beyond the second verse of the most important surah in the Quran. The very first thing you learn as a Muslim. And I learned it over 40 years ago. And that was the Surah Al-Fatah. And it is very short, very important. You say it 14 times a day if you're a good Muslim. I'm not all that good. I used to say it once a day. But by memory, I'd say it in Arabic and I'd say it in English. And I thought I would never, ever, never, ever. It's the one thing that was burnt to my brain. But that day I could not remember past the second verse. All of a sudden it was gone. I could not remember it. And to this day I still cannot remember it. I can remember the first two verses, but not that. And I was beginning to think, is something wrong with me? Have I lost my mind? You know, what's going on? This is something I should know in my sleep. So, after much aggravation and much embarrassment, I got up and I left the prayer line, which is something you don't do. And I left the prayer line, I got on the bus and I went home and I prayed. I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. But even though, as much as this distressed me, something made me feel good, made me feel right. That I was continuing my journey in the right direction. And Jesus was trying to open my heart. And I think that once and for all, I was finally deciding to let him in. And there were times still that I did fall back when I get afraid. You know, but this is a new step. It's a total violation of Islam. So I'm giving up something entirely that I have believed in for years. But I'm not sorry. I get a little nervous, but I'm not sorry. I would like to say, as I mentioned to some in this place, when I first came here, never had I met so many nice people in one place at the same time as I did here at this church. And it was quite amazing. And it holds true now. You know, people hear you speak, they speak back. You nod, even you just nod, they nod back. Just a matter of basic respect. And you see that everywhere you go here. People yell out my name and I can't remember theirs.
Okay.
I guess, you know, I want to give praise and thanks to God for allowing me to cross paths with Christy.
Amen.
Who trusted me to lead me here to this safe place, her safe place, and for her patience and prayer, support and friendship, and Lord knows I've tried them all. She answered all my questions as best as possible. If not, she made sure I got to the right person that could. You know, Noel too. Noel and I, we never hardly get a chance to talk, but when we do, I always get a straightforward, just down there, basic answer. And if not, he'll tell me who I can talk to, who I should talk to. And to that youngster, wherever she, oh, there's she, Christine Peng. You know, the pole vaulter, that's it. Well, I want to thank her for the support and the time that she takes to come and jabber with the old guy sometimes out there in the parking lot. Thank you very much. You're young, and never step out of God's light, and He'll do you right. And to Annie Liu, thank you for being my witness. It meant a lot to me. It was important. And and gives you, you know, the guidance to make the right decision for your life. Thank you very much for being here. And everybody else, you're all a pretty nice bunch.